Most women think men are not paying attention. But the truth is, men are noticing everything, not through the mind, but through the body, through the silence, through the space you enter and the way it shifts the air around you. Pause. A man may not remember the color of your dress, but he will remember how peaceful or chaotic he felt in your presence. He may forget the words you said, but he will carry with him the feeling of being seen or dismissed, noticed or tolerated. This is not to burden you with the need to perform or perfect. It is to awaken you to the power you already carry. The quiet strength of emotional discipline, the elegance of presence, and the profound impact of inner peace. You don't need to change who you are. You need to return to who you are when no one is watching and refine that essence, not for him, but for you. Because the woman who knows herself doesn't need to explain herself, and men notice that too. There is a quiet strength that enters the room before a single word is spoken. It doesn't arrive with a raised voice or a confident strut. It isn't tied to appearance, nor is it dependent on the perfect posture or a flawless smile. What a man often notices first, though he may not be conscious of it, is your presency. Your internal stillness, your centeredness, your ability to be fully there without distraction. This presence is subtle, like the calm beneath the surface of a lake. It is revealed in the way you look at someone when they speak, in how your body rests without tension, in how your breathing is slow and intentional rather than rushed and restless. In a world dominated by noise and urgency, this kind of presence is so rare that it feels almost sacred, and it leaves a mark, not because of how loudly it announces itself, but because of how quietly it shifts the energy around it. Presence is not a skill that can be faked. It cannot be pasted on like makeup or mimicked through body language tricks. It is a byproduct of how in touch you are with yourself. The less fractured your thoughts, the more a man senses your clarity, the more grounded your emotions, the safer he feels in your space. This is not about control or performance. It is about returning to the body, aligning with the breath, and allowing yourself to arrive fully in the moment. A woman who is present invites peace. She doesn't compete for attention because she already holds her own. Her eyes are not scanning the room for comparison or validation. They are rooted in the now. Her stillness doesn't push others away. It draws them in. Men, whether consciously or not, gravitate toward this presence because it signals something deeper than beauty. It signals emotional depth, maturity, and a kind of peace they don't often find in themselves. There's a story told about a teacher who once sat with a group of people during a storm. Thunder shook the walls, rain crashed onto the roof, and anxiety buzzed in the air like electricity. While others panicked or distracted themselves with conversation, the teacher remained still, gazing calmly out the window. After a few moments, someone asked, "Why aren't you afraid?" The teacher smiled and said, "Because I am here." That same quality of being deeply here, grounded in the midst of external turbulence, is what a man notices, even when he doesn't have the words for it. Science supports this as well. The human brain is equipped with mirror neurons, cells that fire not only when we perform an action, but when we observe someone else doing it. When a woman is calm and centered, her presence actually helps co-regulate the nervous system of the person she's with. Her stillness can reduce stress in others. Her groundedness becomes a form of nonverbal leadership. And this is often what makes her unforgettable. It is not a performance, but a practice. This kind of presence is cultivated in solitude, in the early hours before the world wakes, or in the moments before sleep when the mind is quiet. It is shaped by how you speak to yourself, how you care for your body, how you sit with your emotions without trying to escape them. It is nurtured in the pauses between doing and the silence between thoughts. A man doesn't need to understand all of this logically to feel it. He simply knows that when he is near you, his thoughts slow down. His shoulders relax. He breathes more deeply. And sometimes, without even realizing it, he begins to crave that sense of grounded safety that your presence brings. But presence is not always easy. It requires discipline to resist the pull of distraction, especially in a world that constantly demands your attention. It means confronting your own anxiety, your own inner noise, and choosing, again and again, to return to the still point within. This doesn't mean becoming passive or emotionless. It means becoming fully alive, fully aware, and fully engaged in the moment without needing to control it. There is a kind of beauty that cannot be bought or painted on. It is the beauty of awareness. And men, especially those who seek something deeper than surface level attraction, notice this kind of beauty more than you might think. But there's another element that speaks just as powerfully, sometimes even more so than presence. It is emotional energy, your internal state, your patterns of reaction, and how you relate to your own emotions. You may be able to choose your words, but you cannot hide your energy. It moves ahead of you like a current, revealing far more than you intend. Emotional energy is not about being cheerful or positive all the time. It is about authenticity and emotional regulation. A woman who has not made peace with her own emotions often leaks them unconsciously. Her frustration seeps into her tone. Her insecurity masks itself as over-explaining. Her unhealed anger surfaces as control, withdrawal, or sarcasm. And while she may think she's hiding these things behind a smile or polite words, men can feel them. The human nervous system is exquisitely sensitive. Long before the mind makes a judgment, the body has already responded. This is why someone can walk into a room and make others feel uneasy without saying anything, while another person can bring calm just by being there. It's not magic, it's biology. Our systems are constantly reading each other's emotional states, often without conscious awareness. From a psychological standpoint, this is why emotional congruence, when your inner world matches your outer behavior, is so powerful. When a woman is calm, her body language matches her tone, her eyes reflect her words, and her presence feels whole. When she is disconnected internally, there is a mismatch, and that creates unease, even if it isn't obvious. This doesn't mean you have to be emotionally perfect. In fact, what truly draws people in is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of emotional maturity. A woman who can feel anger without becoming destructive, who can feel sadness without collapsing into helplessness, who can express joy without needing attention. She is emotionally sovereign, and men notice this more than anything. There is a particular strength in a woman who can hold space for her emotions without being consumed by them. She doesn't use guilt to manipulate. She doesn't punish with silence. And she doesn't outsource her emotional needs to the man she's with. Instead, she processes her own emotions first, speaks with clarity, and creates connection rather than chaos. This is not weakness. It is deep internal discipline. A simple story illustrates this. A man once described a date he had with a woman who during dinner received a text that upset her. She became visibly distressed, but instead of lashing out or shutting down, she gently excused herself, took a walk, and returned 10 minutes later calm and collected. When asked what happened, she said, "I needed to feel something deeply and give myself a few minutes. I didn't want to bleed that energy onto you." The man later said that moment changed how he saw women. He realized emotional strength wasn't about hiding feelings. It was about owning them without projecting them. This level of emotional clarity requires self-awareness. It requires space in your day to check in with yourself. Not just when something goes wrong, but as a regular practice. It means becoming fluent in your emotional language so you're not surprised by your own reactions. It means healing old patterns so they don't erupt in the present moment. And the reward for this effort is immense. When a woman can remain emotionally attuned without being emotionally volatile, she becomes trustworthy, not just in the eyes of others, but within herself. She knows her own storms and doesn't fear them. She doesn't depend on others to manage her mood or validate her experience. Her power doesn't lie in how much she can express, but in how gracefully she can hold her own emotional landscape. In relationships, this kind of emotional energy becomes a sanctuary. A man may not be able to name what draws him in, but he will return to the space where he feels emotionally safe. He will respect the woman who doesn't weaponize her emotions, but uses them to build bridges rather than barriers. And more than physical attraction, more than intellectual stimulation, it is this emotional clarity that sustains connection. So what men notice is not just the outward expressions, but the energetic imprint of your emotional discipline. The woman who is present and emotionally sovereign does not just attract with her words. She draws others in with her energy. She becomes the calm in the storm, the grounding presence that reminds others of who they are simply by being who she is. And this is not something you learn from books or seminars. It is something you refine in the quiet hours, in the unseen moments, in the practice of stillness and self-reflection. It is something you carry with you, not to impress anyone, but because it reflects the truth of who you've become. And in a world that notices everything, but sees very little, it is this rare inner quality that men never forget. There is a form of communication that doesn't involve the mouth at all. It lives in the quiet space between words. It exists in the way your eyes rest when someone speaks, in the way your shoulders relax or tense, in how long you allow silence to linger without needing to fill it. A man may forget the details of what you said, but he will remember the way you made him feel. And often, that feeling is not created by words, but by your presence during listening. True listening is a disappearing art. Most people today don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. They are already composing their response, already organizing their opinion, already preparing to correct or prove. But the kind of listening that penetrates the heart is very different. It is not passive, but deeply alive. It is the kind of presence that silences your own mind long enough to truly receive the other person. Not just their words, but their emotions, their fears, their need to be seen without judgment. A woman who listens in this way becomes unforgettable. In a world of constant noise, she offers stillness. In a culture of interruptions and opinions, she offers space. Men notice this. They may not speak of it, but they feel it, because when a woman truly listens, she creates a doorway for emotional safety. She offers a sanctuary where masks can fall, where words can be clumsy and imperfect, and where honesty can finally breathe. It's not easy to listen this way. It requires discipline, not of the ears, but of the mind. To truly listen, you must quiet the part of you that wants to analyze, react or fix. You must release the impulse to make it about you, to compare, to defend. You become, in a way, a mirror, clear and still, reflecting back what is without distorting it. This doesn't mean you lose yourself. On the contrary, it means you are so rooted in yourself that you don't need to interrupt to feel important. There's a quiet story that speaks to this. A man once said that the moment he fell in love with his partner wasn't when she dressed up or said something romantic. It was when he was venting about a failure at work and she didn't rush to comfort or correct him. She simply looked at him, nodded gently, and said, "That sounds really heavy. I'm here." He said that in that instant, he felt more seen than he ever had before. Not because she had the right advice, but because she didn't try to fix him. She just received him. That is the power of attuned listening. It is not about agreement. It is about alignment. Alignment with the moment, with the emotional tone, with the subtle cues beneath the words. The human nervous system detects whether it's being met with judgment or openness. The limbic brain, which governs emotion, has no use for logic or words. It reads energy, posture, and intention. And so, when you listen with your full presence, a man's guard naturally drops. He begins to associate your presence with safety. And over time, this is what builds trust. Attuned listening is especially powerful during conflict. In heated moments, most people escalate because they do not feel heard. But when you listen, not to win, not to wait your turn, but to truly understand, you disarm the need for defense. You turn conflict into connection. This doesn't mean becoming submissive or agreeing with what you don't believe. It means you remain open even in disagreement, curious even in discomfort. You hold your inner stillness while allowing another person to reveal their storm. Listening also reveals your maturity. When a woman interrupts often or constantly relates the conversation back to herself, a man senses not only a lack of interest, but a lack of emotional depth. But when a woman listens with steadiness, with non-reactive clarity, with patience, she communicates something far beyond language. She communicates inner order. She shows that she is not driven by ego, but by awareness. And this awareness is deeply attractive, not because it flatters the man, but because it opens a doorway to authenticity. Now imagine this: a man is speaking about something vulnerable, perhaps a fear, a regret, a childhood memory. If the woman in front of him leans back, checks her phone, or rushes to lighten the mood, she may think she's being polite or helping. But he notices, not necessarily the action itself, but the zeros disconnection it represents. He feels emotionally interrupted. The fragile bridge that was forming between their inner worlds collapses. But if she remains present, eyes steady, expression soft, energy quiet, he notices that too. And what he feels is not just connection, but reverence. That's what listening does. It tells another person, without needing to say it, you are worthy of space. Your story matters here. And when that message is felt, not just heard, something sacred happens. Yet communication doesn't end with listening. Just as powerful is the unspoken language we use every moment. How we move, how we carry ourselves, how our bodies reflect our inner state. Movement is more than a mechanical act. It is emotional, it is energetic, and it is constantly communicating to others what words cannot. A man may not consciously analyze the way you walk into a room, but his body responds to it. The elegance or tension in your shoulders, the stillness or urgency in your step, the grace or rigidity in your gestures. All of it is received as information, and that information reveals something deep, not just how you move, but who you are being in that moment. There is an ancient understanding in Eastern traditions that the way one moves reflects the condition of the mind. A restless mind leads to hurried, jerky, reactive movements. A calm mind results in graceful, intentional, fluid action. This principle is not confined to martial arts or meditation. It is reflected in everyday life. When a woman walks as if she has nowhere to go but here, men notice. When she gestures with economy and stillness, they notice. Not because she's performing, but because her movements are aligned with her internal state. She is congruent. She is embodied. This embodiment is the opposite of performance. It is the art of being fully at home in your own body. Many women, disconnected from their bodies due to trauma, insecurity or societal conditioning move in ways that are protective or disconnected, rushed, overly controlled, or trying too hard to impress. But when a woman reclaims her movement, when she walks slowly, when she breathes deeply, when she gestures from her center, she becomes magnetic. Not because of how she looks, but because of how she feels to be around. A man once described seeing a woman walking through a crowded street. She wasn't especially tall, nor was she dressed in any striking way. But something about her stopped him. He said she walked as if she was aware of every step. Her shoulders were relaxed, her eyes soft, her hands still. She seemed completely unbothered by the noise and movement around her. She looked like she didn't need the world to validate her. He said, it was like she brought her own stillness with her. That woman left a deeper impression on him than others who were more traditionally noticeable. This quality is not superficial. It has roots in the nervous system. The body responds to fear by contracting, rushing, and bracing. But a relaxed body is a sign of inner safety. When you move slowly and with ease, you signal to others that you are not a threat and that you are not under threat. This creates a field of calm. It changes the energy in the space, and it invites others into that calm just by being near you. Practically, this means beginning to observe how you move when no one is watching. Do you rush even when you don't need to? Do you fidget or tighten your shoulders out of habit? Are your movements sharp or smooth? These physical cues are often mirrors of your internal landscape, and shifting them, even slightly, begins to shift how others experience you. This isn't about learning to be elegant for the sake of impression. It's about